I want to buy a new car. Jones has bought a new car, and if he can have one, so can I. Money's a bit tight at the moment, so that just means we're not going on holiday at the end of the year. Final.
No ways! I need a holiday. I deserve one. If it's between the car and the holiday, we are going on holiday and you are not getting a new car.
Did this happen to you in the last few days, the last few weeks, the last month? Did you have a conflict similar to this? I'm sure you did. And if you did you turn around and say, thank you for the learning opportunity? Or did you just slam the door, get angry, and walk away? Well, if you didn't do the former, you need to know that you missed out on a growth opportunity, because that's what conflict is. Conflict is a growth opportunity. I'm a psychologist, and like all sciences, psychology follows physics. We know from the new quantum thinking that chaos and transformation go together. We don't know how they're linked, but we do know that they go together. In human relationships, chaos is actually conflict. It's when conflict occurs that things get chaotic. And therefore, it's when conflict occurs that there's a growth opportunity. It's not that conflict's bad. Conflict is given a bad rap. It's the way we handle conflict. Most of us are conflict averse. Most of us are scared to go into the situation and say what needs to be said, because we're scared if we do that, we'll lose the relationship. So we hide our feelings under the proverbial carpet. The conflict doesn't go away, but like cancer, it grows and it finally explodes. A few of us, the minority, love conflict. We go in and we're going to win no matter what. It's our way or the highway. That also doesn't resolve the conflict. My late husband and I, in 1993, we were asked by Eskom to help resolve the racial tension that was happening amongst the people in a small division, relatively small, of 5,000 people. The tension was taking place as we were moving from the Apartheid society into the new democratic dispensation. My late husband and I realized that there was no ways that we could resolve the racial tension that was happening in nanoseconds between these people, even if we had an army of psychologists. So we decided to teach them to fish instead of fishing for them. We decided that we'd take the decision-making process, which is really the basis of business, in fact, it's the basis of life, and we'd help them with the decision-making process to make sure that everybody was included, that all the voices were heard. And then to recognize that as a result of that, all the voices being heard, there would be diverse opinions. And that diversity would create tension and conflict. So we helped them to resolve this tension by recognizing it and then giving them the tools to resolve the conflict. This method has been known as deep democracy, the Lewis method, has now moved to 20 different countries, from boardroom to classroom, and used in a myriad of life situations. I have been honored and privileged to be involved in working with some and facilitating some of the world's major conflicts. The Palestinian conflict, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the Irish conflict, the Turkish conflict, and I've been involved with the United Nations and the human rights issues. I've also been involved with resolving tension with all the isms: racism, sexism, xenophobia, gay rights. And I've been involved with resolving tension in the boardroom and in the union room. I know it may sound strange, and you may feel very far removed from those world conflicts, but in actual fact, they're very much the same as yours. One group wins, and the other group loses or is dominated, and most importantly, is not heard. From a personal experience of my own life history, and as a psychologist, not being heard is one of the most painful human experiences, and it leads to dire consequences. This world, as the Americans say, is an awesome place. We all, like snowflakes, are totally unique. Each one of us is bringing our own unique weave into the tapestry of life. And that uniqueness creates a difference in diversity. It would be a very boring place if we were all the same. It's the differences, the diversity, that leads to innovation and creativity and allows us to the world to spin. The problem is not the diversity. The problem is how we respond to the tension between the people when there is diverse opinions. I would like to introduce you to a method which I've used in major conflicts, but which you can use in your own home, which recognizes that everybody's opinion is important, that we need to hear the different views, and then recognizing that there will be conflict, and how to face the conflict, to mine the wisdom that lies below the conflict. TED Talks are short, so we haven't got a long period of time. So I'd like to give you a lick of the ice cream. The first step is that we're going to recognize that we need to go into the conflict. Some of us just need to hate people for a little longer. You know, when you're in a conflict, you're angry, you just want to hate somebody for a little longer. That's fine, go ahead and do that. But when you've finished hating the person, now's the time to resolve the conflict. Both of you need to agree to go into the conflict resolution. At that point in time, you also need to create safety rules. There's 3 basic safety rules inherent in this method. The first safety rule is recognizing that each one of us, due to our own biology, our genetic base, and our socialization, have our own unique perceptual lens of the world. Each one of us is right, but no one has a monopoly on the truth. The second safety rule is that what Lao Tzu said, the famous philosopher, in order to make peace, have war. Relationships are inevitably going to be conflictual and tense. It's important that we learn to resolve that tension, to actually make sure we resolve the tension in order to stay in relationship, because if we don't, inevitably the relationship will break. And the third safety rule is to recognize that as a result of going into the conflict, I'm going to learn something about myself. I'm going to be shown the blind spot, the thing that other people can see, but I can't see. This is the growth. This is the gift of conflict. I'm going to grow, the person's going to grow, and the relationship will grow. Let's go back to our couple and see what they're doing.
I can't take your sulking and your mood any longer. Let's try this U+Me, let's talk thing and see if that works.
Okay, but we've got to agree on the safety rules. We agree on the first 3 and no shouting. You've got to tone down your voice and actually give me a chance to say something. Don't shout. You've got to listen. No interrupting, okay?
And no walking out. You can't walk out. You have to stay and finish the argument.
The second step is throwing all the arrows. This is very different to most conflict resolution methods, which tend to suggest that you should see the other person's point of view. This method is very different. You know, when you have something happen to you and you're angry with somebody and you can't say anything that you want to say, you say to yourself, well, I'll forget it. But in actual fact, you don't forget it. You put it like an arrow in the quiver. And when the conflict occurs, that's when you throw all your arrows. And we remember everything. Women are particularly good at that. And when we go into conflict, we tend to want to win. So we don't throw all the arrows at once. If one person throws a little arrow, yours is just a little bit bigger. You keep the rest behind for the big fight. Yeah. Sometimes there's even nuclear missiles in your quiver. This method is about throwing it all, saying it all, making sure you empty the quiver. It's done in a very organized way. One person goes first, and the other person has to listen. When that person's finished, this person goes, and that person has to listen. It's not playing tennis when one person says one thing and the other person says another thing. That's when conflict escalates. It becomes chaotic when we tend to argue through tennis playing. So this method is really about throwing your arrows and saying it in a very structured way. Let's go back to our couple.
The problem is you don't spend enough time with the kids. Johnny is now 5, and you should do boy stuff with him, but you're flaked out on the sofa watching TV. When he comes to you with his Lego, you give him a morsel of time and then back to your watching. And you're missing out on your children growing up. And when you say that we can't go on holiday and need to stay at home again, means that you will sit on the couch watching TV and I will be looking after the children. I also contribute to this family. I have a half-day job, I look after the kids, and I run the home. I need a holiday too. And when we go to my mother's in Cape Town, the family supports me and I get my much-deserved rest. You also promised when we moved from Cape Town to Johannesburg that I'd see my family every year. That was a promise, and you are going back on it.
Everything I do for the family. I work hard. My family is the most important thing to me, and I don't take much for myself. I deserve and want a new car. Jones has got a new car, and if he can have a new car, so can I. And by the way, if we don't trade in our new car now, we won't get much for it anyway. And talking of Cape Town, we've got this ritual of going down to Cape Town every year. It's a bloody ritual. Can't we do something creative? It's not that I don't like your mother. You know we get on fine, and we like each other. But it's the Cape Town ritual of not having a fun adventure holiday like we used to.
Clearly, we'd have a few more rounds, but this is a TED talk, so we had to speed it up. The third step is that we're now going to own the grain of truth. It's almost like you're in the cavalry, and the arrows are whizzing past, but one or two of them will hit home. They will go beyond the armor plating. Those are the ones you need to look at. You need to take them out very slowly because arrowheads are sharp. And also, they're going to say something to you that you may not like. They're going to give you information about your blind side. Now, the arrow is accusing you of being an axe murderer. But in actual fact, there's a grain that you discounted someone. It's not the whole arrow, it's the grain of truth. Remember that when you get defensive about anything, there must be a grain of truth. Both parties need to own at least one grain for the conflict to be resolved. Let's go back to our couple.
You're right. I am missing out on the kids. I come home exhausted, and on the weekends I do flake out. I'm not having quality time with the kids. I can, and I do want to do more boy things with Johnny.
You're right. You do work hard for this family, and you don't take anything for yourself. You should buy the car, and it's true. It is like a ritual, and I think that we could be more creative on our holidays.
The fourth step is to make a decision based on the grains. You don't go back to all the arrow throwing. You just make a decision based on the grains. Let's go back to our couple.
You know what I think? I think we should buy the car. And then we don't need to go to Cape Town on holiday.
We can spend quality time together with the kids and doing kid-type things. We can do fun things around Joburg with the new car, being a family together.
And when you go on your next business trip, we can ask my mother to come up. It'll give her a chance to spend time with me and the kids and be a support to me while you're away.
I hope you've liked the lick of the ice cream, and I hope you're interested to find out more, and more particularly, to go into conflict instead of evading it. We all have ways of evaluating ourselves. My personal favorite is to pretend that I've died and gone up to heaven, and I'm asking St. Peter if I can go through the pearly gates. If I've managed to convince a few of you that conflict is important, that it's important to go into conflict, to resolve it, and to gain the wisdom that lies below it, then as you resolve conflict in the dining rooms, hopefully virally it will spread to the boardroom, and hopefully virally it will spread to the war room. We each one are responsible for the health and the safety of this planet. By resolving conflict, your own personal conflict, you'll be making this planet a better place. Thank you, TEDx.